Well, hello, welcome back. If this is your first time, welcome. Today I learned that video mode on the iPhone has a pause button. Cinematic mode does not. Because the last video I filmed, there was a pause button. I was like, where is that coming from? What's going on? Because it was in video mode, not cinematic. Like my ring light. I have a question. How the hell does air and water make leaves with chlorophyll? That's a little nuts to me. Like, I have these plants on the ground. Well, they're usually on my shelf, but then I put them on the ground in a tray to water them. Let me know if there's better methods than my methods, please. But I'm looking at these, I'm like, all I give y'all is sunlight and water. How the hell does sunlight and water, clear sunlight and clear water, turn into a leaf? A leaf, y'all? Like a leaf? Like we generate leaves? Anyway, whatever. That shit is nuts. The universe is nuts. Which actually brings me to my topic today. So this past couple of days I've been pontificating on dimensions and the nature of reality. First of all, fun fact, we cannot perceive all reality. Reality can only be experienced through the senses that you have the perception of. Someone who's blind and has never seen color will never be able to understand what color is. Though they experience, you can translate color to other things. So for example, color is a frequency of light. You can use a mathematical system to translate frequencies of light to frequency of sound, but that still is not the same thing as experiencing color visually through a sense that you do not have. It's just being translated to the senses that you do have, if that makes sense. So though, what is science? Science, fun fact. Oh, I just learned this. Y'all, did y'all know this? I didn't know this. Science is just a replicable, observable way to interact with reality through the senses, which means science can only ever operate through the senses. To be fair, yes, science can expand the senses that we have access to through special machinery. A microscope, for example, can see at levels that our eye cannot see. But that being said, just because you expand the range of our senses does not mean that you can experience all things that there are to be experienced, which means science is inherently, by definition, a limited experience of reality, which means science alone cannot define reality, which is why I can both believe in science and God, because I believe in science being able to observe as much of reality as possible. I do not believe in science to do anything beyond that, because definitionally it can't, which means God, who is operating on higher dimensions, I'll explain the dimensions later, cannot be observed by all science. Does that mean God is not real? No. Does that mean microscopic things are not real just because you can't see them? No, but then you have to get a microscope to see them. There are theoretical microscopes, tools. There are tools that over time maybe we will have the genius to invent to experience more and more details of reality than we currently experience. I think a lot of them will revolve around the brain and body, because there's a lot we don't understand about how the brain and body works, not because it doesn't have rules, but because we don't currently have the capability and tools to observe what those rules are. Anyway, science itself definitionally cannot observe God. That does not mean God does not exist. And fun fact, there's math and there's science. Shout out to STEM. Math and science. Math definitionally circulates on the idea that there must be a God. Who that God is, what they are like, who knows? But math, as we know it, and as we extrapolate from it, extrapolates that, this seems pretty designed, pretty intentional. All of it does. Well, if something was designed, that means there is a designer. Who that designer is, you get to decide. I, as a Christian, would prefer to convince you that that designer is the God I serve. But if you come up with a different answer, who cares? As long as we are in agreement that math says there is a God. Science says we can only observe this much of reality. And God probably exists beyond our senses. Dimensions. Time for dimensions. What are dimensions? Physicists, correct me in the comments. Dimensions are just like a measurement of location. Whatever, I'm gonna go with that. Dimensions are a measurement of location. You have the x-axis, measurement of all x points, and then the external observation of all points along x is a line. Then you have the y-axis, another way to get to a location. All the xy points create a plane. 2D shapes create a plane. If you put a dot has an x location. An infinitesimally small dot has an x location. If you line up all dots across x, you get a line. If you line up all lines across y, you get a plane. If you line up all planes, you get space, which is the z dimension, depth, right? Length with depth, or what I'm talking about. The z dimension is if you line up all planes. So you take all dots, and then they make a line from the outside looking in. Take all lines, they make a plane from the outside looking in. Take all planes, they make a depth. You can call it a cube if you're, for some reason, you're imagining it to be a square, but it actually expands out infinitely. Not all infinities are the same size, by the way, but that's a whole nother thing about scale. And then Albert Einstein has observed. Reality can only be observed, not created. When you define reality, you're actually just observing what it is already defined as. Whew, that shit is crazy. Anyway, Albert Einstein observed reality as space-time, our dimension as space-time. Why? Because you can only ever experience life one moment at a time. But according to everything I just said, if you line up all points in that measurement, you can, from the outside looking in, see all points on the measurement as once as a singular object, whether that be a line, a plane, or a cube. Which means if we are in space-time as a dimension, wow, I sound crazy, but I'm telling y'all the truth. I swear. I'm gonna start getting a little Hotep nigga hat because I really am a Hotep nigga at heart. But this is literally just physics and math and philosophy. Like, these are fields that white men study and get to be called normal geniuses for. The fuck? Just because it's coming out of my mouth, it doesn't mean it's wrong. You just think it's so insane that I'm saying it. Someone else thinks it's so insane that it's true when it comes out of someone else's mouth. Anyway, let me not put words in your mouth. If we are experiencing life one moment at a time, that means all moments in time in this timeline can be experienced as a line. Don't forget, all dots on the x-axis are experienced as a singular line. If we experience only one moment in time, that means all moments in time can be experienced as a timeline. That means that someone from the outside looking in, you have to be in a dimension above to be able to see all the points in the dimension below. That means a being on a dimension higher than this one can see all moments in my life, all moments in my life's timeline. Because my life is only one timeline. I'm moving through it one moment at a time. They can see my birth and this present moment and my death simultaneously as all the present. They're just locations on the timeline. Time is not an illusion. Time is actually a measurement point, just like X, just like Y, just like Z are measurement points. X equals 5, Y equals 7, Z equals 12 is a location. But we've added another dimension, which is time. Time is actually just also a location. It is Sunday, June 14th, 10:08 p.m. in whatever the seconds in this time zone. That's actually all just a location on the time coordinate. These are all coordinates. And if you bring all those coordinates together, you get to Phyllis right now having this experience. But I'm actually not real. That sounds so crazy. I'm telling you the truth though. I'm not real. I'm just an experience of a timeline in sequence. All my memories of my life are just previous coordinates of this timeline, all downloaded in my brain as the illusion of my past. But there's no past, present, or future. They're all just locations. Which means everything that has ever and will ever exist exists right now at a certain location, but we don't experience the location because we can only traverse our own dimensions, and the farthest our dimension goes is space-time. But that means that beings in dimensions above us can traverse space-time, which means a being, a spirit, we'll call them a spirit, God, whatever. I actually think God is the final boss. I think there's spirits in between, in dimensions between, and God is the nothingness that all these coordinates exist, and God exists outside of it, just observing all of it with access to all of it, all dimensions. I'm a being that has access to X, Y, Z, and time. No, I don't have access to traversing time. I experience time though. I have access, whenever I move my hand, it's moving across X, Y, and Z planes. That means there's a being in a dimension above this that can move across my life. Not even necessarily God. You only have to go one dimension up to get there. I think God is outside of all dimensions. So yeah, there are spirits fucking around with past and present me. I also think that's where I think morality exists on a different dimension. I think our psychology and our thoughts are the side effects of consciousness of another dimension. Consciousness in and of itself is also another dimension. Why do I say that? I'm currently an XYZ time coordinate. Me right now, right here. But if you've ever heard of astral projection, it's someone taking their consciousness and entering a different XYZ time coordinate, which means it's capable to traverse XYZ and time while maintaining your own consciousness without having to be Phyllis. So you can be in Phyllis's mind, aka a demon, or an angel, but angels don't really possess people, so demons can be in Phyllis's mind, Phyllis's XYZ time coordinate without being Phyllis. Oh shit. And this is why I'm telling you, God is not the only person who has access to traversing time. God is not the only person who has access to traversing consciousness. Time is a dimension. Consciousness is a dimension. Morality is a dimension. Why do I think morality is a dimension? Because you can traverse it. And we see the side effects of certain people being incapable of going beyond certain points of morality. And the reason why I say this is that this is going to be so hard to explain to someone who doesn't understand what the fuck I'm saying without like all the background context. You can only experience higher dimensions through the sliver of your own dimension. A line can only ever experience a plane, a line at a time. A dot can only ever experience a line, a dot at a time. A plane can only experience depth, a plane at a time. Depth can only experience time, a moment at a time. Time can only experience whatever the fuck is above those dimensions. I don't know. A unit of whatever its dimension is at a time. And I'm convinced morality is a dimension because we can only ever move through certain parts of morality. We do not have access to all of it. Some people feel like they do because they're fucking evil. And I think that's set in a dimension above us because I think we get our psychology from our souls. Our souls are an interface from a higher dimension. That's where babies get personalities from. That's where thoughts come from. Thoughts are interfaces with other dimensions, which is why they seem so fucking random, but they're not random. This is also why luck does not exist. Coincidences do not exist. Everything is being manipulated at dimensions above you, but they seem random in our dimension. I didn't make that up. Literally, there's a TED talk on this where if you are observing higher dimensions, if 1D were to observe 2D, 2D would look probabilistic, not deterministic, because 2D doesn't have access to perceive the deterministic rules of dimension above it. Thoughts look random. Timelines colliding looks random. Consciousness colliding looks random because we do not perceive the dimensions above that are setting what our thoughts are, setting how we end up in a certain place and how the timelines collapse, setting our morality, setting our emotional states. Anyway, so yeah, I use science and math to convince myself that God is indeed real. I already was Christian and I had a lot of faith, but I like proving things from all arguments, not just one. And yeah, God is real because math said so. Heaven is real. Spirits are real because science says so. Not science, because science is observed. You're right. Science is the observation of reality, which means science cannot possibly say so. We'll just call it more math. Math says dimensions exist. Math says God exists. Math says spirits exist because something non-observable is traversing dimensions higher than ours. That also means time travel exists. We may not have access to it, but beings above us do. It also means consciousness can trade locations, aka astral projection. Whew. Come back another day, y'all.